The fetid heat of the jungle rolled up into the high ground at dusk, clawing our throats, soaking us, robbing us of our last strength, Cayman and I. But we ran to the high ground, ran frantically, tripping headlong into the stinking green morass, and rising and running again. But we made it to the high ground above the Carrare River, and we were out. And so were the emeralds. $1 million worth of green ice for the two of us. My khakis were shredded at the ankles from the sharp tugging of the tall grass. My hands were raw and oozing thick rivulets of blood. My face felt heavy with the grotesqueness of panic and the poison of before. But I was alive, and death was behind me, I thought. I lay on the hot red ground, too weary to speak, too tired to look down the canyon for the Indians. Indians and more Indians. I lay there in eternity, and the exhaustion swallowed me, and I felt the heat waves lifting my body, and I slept like a dead man. And Cayman did too. But Cayman woke first, and when I opened my eyes and saw he was gone, I thought the emeralds had gone with him. I'd never distrusted Luke Cayman, but that time was different. After what we'd gone through, the blood, sweat, tears, and death, I'd suspect my own grandmother. Frantically, I lurched to my feet and spun up the rise, and I saw Cayman there, on his knees, praying. When I dropped to the ground beside him, Cayman ended his supplication and turned to me and grinned. "So you're awake. You see, it was just as I said it would be. We're alive. 2 more days, and we're back in Bogota, and we're rich," Cayman said. "Do we travel at night, Cayman?" "Yes. Indians prefer the daylight hours. We travel at night." "Okay," I said, seeing the exhaustion on his coppery face. "How do we do it, on our hands and knees?" Cayman smiled. He knew we needed rest. 3 days ago we'd begun the trek. 3 years ago, so it seemed. Then the Chonta spears began falling, and the original 5 dwindled to 2. Below us sprawled the rushing white waters of the Carrare, and to his side on the far bank rocks. Cayman indicated the rocks with a nod. "There," he grunted, "are the caves. We go there. If we remain on the high ground, they'll come up soon. I figure we'll fool them. They'll never look up there. Backtrack. And right now, we'll be safe in the caves," he nodded. But Cayman was wrong. Dead wrong, almost. Because what happened next made the spears of the savages seem hardly more than a bad hangover. What happened next happened slowly and bloodily, and it robbed us of our Muso treasure. And more. Much more. Including sanity itself. Mine and Luke Cayman's. On the 12th day of March 1946, we made our strike. It happened late in the afternoon of a day that had started out most unfortunately for me. A moderately poisonous mountain snake caught me in the calf of my right leg. I'd been in the Colombian jungles almost 7 months, scratching the hills above the Carrare digging for emeralds. 7 months of sheer back-breaking labor because, among other things, we, Cayman and I, were borrowed up to our eyeballs in order to keep our operation rolling. Worse yet, our crews were constantly threatening to quit. Indian trouble, the fatal kind. Repeatedly, we were harried by sporadic attacks on our mountain excavation. Attacks that came suddenly with the whizzing of spears or the sharp zing of the arrows. And always there were dead men in the wake of these attacks, and more men quick to quit. 7 months of that, and I sprouted the neatest crop of gray sideburns this side of Bogota. But somehow I'd always managed to come away from those deadly encounters alive and with a whole skin. I can't say why. Maybe it was luck. Maybe the Indians had lousy vision. Maybe they were saving us for a worse fate than the poison splinter. I wondered about that for 7 long months, day in and day out. I saw men sliced down the middle, split like stuck pigs by machetes that lanced through the jungle, thrown by unseen hands. I saw a lot of things that came under the general heading of horror. But as I'd guessed, the worst was yet to come. Originally, Luke and I were pearl dusters in Mexico. Luke, whose mother was Spanish and his father Colombian, spoke the language naturally. He was my voice and on many occasions my lifesaver. We'd done service together in the old China fleet running the Yangtze on a gunboat. The Navy agreed with us. We were shipmates and we had plans. When World War II broke out, Luke and I got separated and we didn't meet again until the day I mustered out at Mare Island Naval Base. That was in May 1945. I met Luke standing against the bar in the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco. There, in an atmosphere of gushing whiskey, we formulated our weird plan. Next morning when I awoke, Luke met me down at the coffee shop and we rehashed the bit of the previous evening. Not the whiskey part, not just then. Just the part about the pearls Luke said he knew were ripe for plucking. That's how it was. From pearls with a capital P, we poured a thumping 70,000 into men, materiel, engineers, and a lot of bum advice. We listened to talk that the Muzo treasure was as available as our pearls had been. Muzo is in Spanish conquistadors. 7 long months slipped by, and the only emerald I'd seen to date was down in the government assaying office in Bogota. I awoke that morning feeling lousy. I stepped out of our tent and climbed down the grade to the chow house. I stumbled sleepily against a boulder and caught it, a searing pain in my right leg. Bad? Luke said, running down. Bad enough. Luke tore my pants leg and made the incision. Then he gave me a shot of snake serum and stuck me back in the sack. Fever raged through my body until nightfall, and I swelled so I could barely breathe. But I lived, thanks to Luke Kamen. And that night my world took on a new luster. I was still in my bunk when I heard Luke shouting, and the other men with picks hollering like maniacs. I forgot the snake bite. I crawled out of the sack and literally slid down the grade on my hands and knees. They were too confounded crazy with joy to worry about me. The 4 of them had found emeralds on our site. Green ice sold at $12 million per pound. Green ice came out of layers of rock and dirt and death. We had a small piece of it worth a cool $1 million. We'd made a payday, but the joy was short-lived. That night, we made preparations to break camp. The boys made me a litter, but I said the hell with that, I'd be okay. That's how it was. I made it. Luke and I came out together. The others caught arrows and spears and died screaming along the lower slopes. For 2 days, we ran, hid, stumbled, scurried through the underbrush. Luke and I had the ice, the green ice. And that night in the cave below the high ground, we lost it. We lost everything, it seemed. The hole in the mountain beside the river was Stygian black. Luke went in first. I was sick to my stomach from the snake bite, so Luke dragged me in. Then, in the darkness, we lay on the moist, stinking cave ground, and there we fell asleep. It was not yet light when I saw them. I opened my eyes and shrunk back in horror as I felt wings rushing across my face, wings on the jagged walls of the cave, vampire wings on Luke Kamen. Luke was dead. Even as I struggled to my feet, I could see those beady-eyed devils sucking his blood, hundreds of them covering his head and arms, blood trailing and draining onto the floor of the cave. The horror shriveled my guts and I shrank back against the cave wall. I tried to cover my face and crawl to the entrance of the cave, but I couldn't. I was too weak to move, too weak to defend myself when they attacked me. En masse, they dropped, and I screamed. It happened then in a rush of soft wings. Swarms of them left Luke's body and descended on my face and hands, biting me, clawing my face, then fastening themselves to the back of my neck. I felt the hot rush of blood coursing down my throat and dug my fingers into the body of one, tearing and squeezing it into a wet blob of shapelessness. Squeaking wildly, they clung to my skin and probed the flesh of my chest. Others, their eyes glowing red in the lurid half-light, swarmed down, their short stubby teeth raking as they hit like dive bombers. Cringing against the wet facing of the cave, I screamed and the sound of my terror boomed back. But above that I heard the sound, the squeaking sound of the winged ones and the rush of vampire wings. I saw my own blood drooling from their small, opaque throats. I lunged at the air, grabbing them in flight and squeezing even as they tore my fingers. I fought. I had nothing but animal terror to fight with. And it wasn't enough. In that last frenzy to gain the entrance, my foot slipped in blood, and I tripped over Luke's body. My face slammed against the side of the cave, and I heeled over, the dizziness rolling over me crazily, distorting like the long wings of the vampires that hovered about my face. Desperately, I fought the rising mists, trying to crawl those last 20 feet, and not caring whether the bats sucked my blood. If I didn't make the entrance, I'd die there with Luke. I'd lose consciousness and die. My blood siphoned noiselessly by the thirsty death. The back of my neck pained wildly as I felt the new rush smash down. My face was in blood, slapped against the stinking dankness of the cave. The last few feet of it. I thought my arms would fall off as the vampires suddenly moved to block the entrance. I beat at them, hovering there, fluttering against my body. My hands were animated clubs, crimson pistons that slashed out and clutched the small wet heads and squeezed them until they spilled back my life. I prayed as I crawled. I stared into the eyes of death hanging over me and on me and in my hair, and when one hit my mouth, I caught the wet body in my teeth and ground it so that it no longer fluttered. I reached the face of the cave and felt the new air and the sound of squeaking, rushing wings, and my own thumping heart receded quickly. The cave spun away, the sky darkened, and engulfed my remains. I left the emeralds there, back behind me in the cave, for when I awoke, I ran through the jungle. I ran as I had never run before. I knew a terror that was far more horrible than silent spears. Vampire bats. Long, squeaking, blood-sucking vampire bats. Luke came and had the emeralds on his person when he died. We'd drawn straws to see which of us, originally 5, would take them out. Luke had drawn the short one. So Luke died with them. A cool million. I left that behind. And as far as I know, they're still in the cave, under the bats, in the lee of the Curare. And they're safe. I'll never go back, I assure you. If I lived through a nightmare like that and emerged only with a little less sanity and some blood drawn from my body, I can go right on being a pauper. It's a damn sight easier on my nervous system. What nervous system I've got left, that is.
As always, a huge thank you to my incredible Patreon supporters, particularly Michael Fattori, Andre D, Break System BSE, Zachary Snowden Smith, and Zanazira. If you really enjoyed this video and you want to support this channel, please head over to the Patreon link. It's as little as $1 a month to see your own name up here and join in the pulpy madness. Thanks for watching, and thanks for being you.